Welcome back, everybody. It's another fantastic edition of the Purple Menace Podcast, brought to you by Rivals.com and Fan Media Network. Hey, TCU fans, who wants to be an official iPhone video correspondent covering the Horned Frogs for Fan Media Network? Download the Fan Media app and upload your videos. TCU fans are the ones that vote on these videos, so you can help determine the winners. Fan Media, Who's Got Game, available in the Apple App Store. Now, guys, I have a Fan Media account. I know that, Matt, you told me you already had one. Billy,
yes, sir.
You just created one.
I created while sitting here in the KTCU studios. It's got a sweet profile pickup. It's me and the Heisman Trophy from a couple weeks ago.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, right? You jelly?
I am. The whole situation made me jealous. The Heisman Trophy and you together, you know.
It's probably the best situation since Manziel winning the Heisman. It's about the same level of success.
Yeah, about.
Okay. About. So Fan Media, go check it out. It's in the Apple App Store. Get on there. You get to select the teams that you want to root for, and basically you get to be your own sideline reporter. You go on there. You can upload a 30-second video of when you're at a game. So and that's the thing. It's the fans. It's getting the fans involved and giving the fans a voice.
That's great. We do not condone people running onto the sidelines, though, and doing these videos.
Yes.
I'm saying it's like
I wouldn't recommend them trying it. I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
Frog Alley is the place to do it.
Frog Alley is probably the best place. I have snuck onto the field before, but I'm also, I don't know, I guess allowed to be on the field most of the time.
Right, but
so,
you have a credential that says you can be on the field now.
Kind of a big deal.
Most people now, hey, if it's the last spitballing here, if it's the last game of the season and it's number 1 versus number 2 and TCU wins, storm the field and upload your videos. Fan
Back
Media.
in my day, they would not allow people to storm the field. Even when we beat, BYU was number 18 or whatever. Utah, they eventually let us on the field, but it was such a cluster to try and get down there. It's like, no one can touch this field. No one can touch it. And then that's kind of when they're like, all right, fine, I guess we'll let people on the field. But I remember seeing them arrest people. Straight up throw kids to the ground here
That's
at TCU.
crazy.
I'm like, why are we they won a game. Let them run around on the field. But here we are. Last we are, now we are here. Use your Fan Media app. Take a video of you at the game, preferably next Thursday night when TCU hosts Virginia or West Virginia, because we have a bye week this week.
Yes, we got a bye week, so we're gonna have a fun show because we're gonna break down the Iowa State game. That if you looked at the score in the first half, you were like, "Uh-oh." Matt was saying there was people freaking out already, going, "Here we go again." Another
That was
shootout.
one of them.
It's no. And then
Matt's the calmest person I've ever met.
And then the second half, TCU does what TCU does, which is make a couple of halftime adjustments and come out and play some physical D. And they did that, and they won the game 45-21. Iowa State didn't score after the first quarter.
Nope, shut out.
It was just, trick plays are going to happen. Gadget plays are going to happen. Billy called it going into it. They're going to happen. They worked. Almost every one of them, other than the onside kick, worked.
And that would have worked if it had been another yard and a half down the field, if I recall how that play went down.
Yeah, it was
like an 8.5 yard touch or whatever.
It was very close. So we're going to talk about the Iowa State game coming up. Then we're going to talk about a couple of recruits. It's right in the middle of the high school season right now, so there's some guys that are outperforming what most people thought they were going to do. There's some guys that are underperforming. Luckily, most of those guys are juniors, so they've got a whole nother year. Nobody freak out because it's completely different going from high school to college anyway. If you've learned anything from listening to the show and talking to Phil Taylor or BJ Catalan or Tyler Luttrell, it's a whole nother animal once you step foot on this campus.
Unless you're Kevontae Turpin. Then it's just like the whole world is your oyster. Everybody is just asking for touchdowns from you.
He's got 18 catches and 6 touchdowns.
Dude's real good.
That's one every 3, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're good at fractions.
According to math.
And hopefully we get him back. I guess we'll talk some injuries too, but hopefully he comes back this week.
Yeah,
we're expecting him back.
We'll talk Iowa State. We'll talk recruiting, and then we're going to do a mid-season report card. No game this week, so we're not going to preview the West Virginia game till next week, and we're going to have a special guest next week. Special guest tease, another former Rose Bowl player.
But this guy played beyond TCU.
He played for the Atlanta Falcons. That's all I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say.
Are you a bunch of Fonzes in Atlanta? A bunch of Fonzies down there?
No, because he went and played in the A.
Is that how they say it on the bus?
Is that really what they do?
On the Marta?
Well, no, I mean, they don't say it like that, but...
I didn't hear
They don't
anybody.
bring out the Fonz?
No, they don't say it like the...
Hey!
Just go talk about the
We're
next
in the
segment.
A.
Talk about the next
Oh, in that
segment.
jukebox, I got to play that Dirty South music.
Talk about the next segment.
And then in our final segment, the fan media prediction time segment, we're going to go over who the midseason champion is. We've made our picks every week. It's, Billy, myself, Matt, and then usually we have a guest that makes their picks. We went through, we crunched the numbers, and we've decided on who the midseason champion is.
He's really cool.
He will get to give a speech in the fan media prediction time segment at the end of the show. But coming up next, we're going to dive right into this Iowa State thing. They did it. They're 7-0. Still undefeated. The Horned Frogs. You like the pauses?
I do.
You keep thinking I'm going to wrap it up. But
No, I never want you to wrap it up.
Here we go. We'll be back. Quit giggling. Matt's trying to hold a straight face.
He's failing miserably at it.
How long can I keep doing this?
Matt's got class here in like an hour, so we need to get this going.
Purple Menace Podcast.
5 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease, and another 16 million husbands, wives, children, and friends are caregivers. But the right foods may help you prevent it. Vegetables, fruits, whole grains, beans, the same foods that fight diabetes and heart disease can also keep your brain strong and memory sharp. Let's eat right to fight Alzheimer's. Visit eattofightalzheimers.org.
Welcome back to the Purple Menace Podcast. I had to work in some Rush there because I love Rush. And Tom Sawyer's one of the best songs ever.
Rush is pretty good. Have you seen Is It I Love You, Man?
Yes.
Yes. That's
Where they go see the trifecta.
the Rush concert. That's a pretty solid movie. I get compared to Jason Segel not often, but every once in a while.
I get compared to famous actors every once in a while.
I mean,
it's no big deal.
It's not like he's Brad Pitt or anything. He's just the epitome of the average Joe who's kind of funny. It's kind of how I view myself.
I like to view myself as a combination of Bradley Cooper and
A box of Krispy Kremes?
and Paul Rudd.
Does that mean?
I can see the Paul Rudd bit. I'm not sure. Well, okay, I can see Bradley Cooper too.
Don't feed his ego. What's wrong with you, Matt?
What? I'm just being honest.
Matt's like
He's so nice.
the baby from The Hangover
People have told me.
and some other small person.
Matt's like a whiter version of Ken Jeong.
And the guy, he's the baby from The Hangover and the little guy, Peter Dinklage.
No.
People have told me I look like oh gosh, Jason Bateman before.
Okay,
yeah,
yeah,
like
I can see
Teen
that. I can
Wolf,
actually see that. Yeah.
And people have told me I look like Ewan McGregor.
A little bit.
Okay,
Yeah, I can
okay,
see
yeah.
that.
Those
I
are the
can
two that
definitely
I've gotten
see.
before.
Yeah. Okay.
A very American.
See, based on what we've just cited, y'all are both much better looking than I am.
Well, no, Jason Segel's a good-looking guy.
He's the epitome of average.
You can't. Okay, we're getting off track.
but he's funny.
Oh, he's hilarious. That's all of my game comes from my comedy.
Yeah.
And very that's
yeah.
as you can imagine, I have no game. So,
Speaking of the game,
hey, look at us segue.
Iowa State, Ames, Iowa, never a fun place to play. Never.
Or probably visit. I can't imagine there being a lot of fun things to do in Ames, Iowa.
I was at a wedding shower, and so I missed like the first quarter of the game.
You miss all of Iowa State's action.
I turned. It was like 2 minutes left, and so, but luckily my cousin is awesome. So like everybody got there, and we kind of we're all snacking, and she goes, "Can we put the game on?" Yes, thank you, Lauren Moore, for telling us to put the game on. So we put the game on, and it was right. It was right after the onside kick that didn't happen, which scared the dickens out of me because I was like, "Really, you kidding me?" And that guy that almost recovered it, that's like another track star guy. He ran track at Northern Iowa and then transferred to Iowa State. I mean, he's a speedster for real. That probably onside kick probably works if he's not the one running down there.
Yeah,
Right.
he's too fast.
He was too fast and he touched the ball too early.
That was, I thought, first off, award for best use of the word Dickens in regular conversation goes to Geoff. Second, no, I thought that was going to be. I thought that had the chance of being a huge swing in momentum for Iowa State. That point was the moment where you were going to start saying, okay, it's kind of, the giant slayers in Ames. Whenever you go play a night game at Iowa State, it's always a tough task. So that, I think, really kind of took a little bit of the air out of the building, and then TCU being able to punch it in immediately after that really kind of, I think, got momentum on TCU's side and kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
I think even with that, I was never too terribly afraid of Iowa State. I mean, it was 21-14 after the first quarter.
Yep.
There's just like you just know after all these weeks they're going to turn it on. And Iowa State was not the quality team that Kansas State or Texas Tech is. And you're just like, eventually Boykin and Dotson are like, all right, here we go. I think we were talking about this earlier. I'm just going to, all right, you ready to go win the game? Let's go win the game.
Yeah, the K-State game I felt like was more worrisome early
because you were down by 18.
Well, not even that, but you get up 14-7 and then the offense turns the ball over a couple times, and just they never really had a problem moving the ball against Iowa State. They had to punt a couple times, but in general you weren't sitting here like, I'm not sure if the offense is going to get it going at this point. Whereas against K-State, that was the worry. And that's the thing for TCU going forward is as long as the offense is able to, rack up some yards and even eat up some clock, which is something they've done reasonably well the last few weeks, you're confident that they're going to be able to fight their way back into some games even if they fall behind.
I'll tell you who I was most impressed with in that Iowa State game for the Cyclones. Sam Richardson. He was putting the ball on the money.
He had a good
Ninth-year senior. Yeah. He's
everywhere.
legit.
But I mean, like the first throw of the game, he kind of scrambled he rolls out to his right, and he zips one off to the sideline. And I mean, it helps when you got 6'5", 6'6" receivers. But he put that ball where it was either caught or it was in the out of bounds, and the guy just reaches up, snags it, and just all day there was those types of plays. The non-touchdown, non-interception to Bundridge in the corner of the end zone where he had the ball knee down, but the ball moved a little bit when he hit the ground, and then his knee came down on him, and then Orr comes up with it, and they ruled it an interception somehow. But
Big 12 refs.
If that had managed to be an interception, that would have been the best interception I've seen, certainly this season in college football.
It's like he just kind of took the ball from when they're both laying on the sideline. It's like, all right, you done with that? Let me have it.
They let him do that if it's still in the field of play. That would have been an interception. But since it was out of bounds, it had to be incomplete. But, I mean, where he put that ball on the money where only the receiver could catch it or it wasn't a catch. And it was like that all game long. Last week I talked about how much I love Paul Rhodes. I think he's a fantastic coach. He's just kind of in a bad situation. I almost feel the same way you can't feel bad about players playing in Big 12, that's a bad situation. But if Sam Richardson was at one of these other schools that ran an offense similar to what TCU or Baylor or Tech runs, I think this guy, we'd be talking about him a lot more on how good of a quarterback he is. And then Alan Lazard. He's just a freak. And I talked about him last week. I said, when is he going to have that game where he breaks out? This might have been it. I mean, he broke the tackle on the sideline on the pass interference with Orr and took it to the house 74 yards. But it was the same thing. He made plays when they needed to, all the way to the effect that Denzel Johnson got ejected from the game for targeting him on a low pass where that was still an iffy call, but I see why they threw Denzel out because he did lead with the helmet, but the ball was down. They're both crouched down. He's just going down. But that's a frustration play.
Yep.
And it was made because Alan Lazard was making plays.
Yeah,
those two guys were really impressive, but TCU got it together in the second half, made some adjustments. Defense played really well in the second half.
Absolutely.
Really, the second quarter, they had already started, but Matt and I were talking a little bit before, and we talked about, Ty Summers played really well in this game. Added a little more size at linebacker, and they weren't able to run the ball the same with Mike Warren, that guy's going to be good.
Yeah, Mike Warren, who's a true freshman, if I'm not mistaken, right?
He's a redshirt. Thomas is the true freshman.
Right. So Warren, redshirt freshman, getting really. He was leading all freshman rushers coming into the game. Was really just playing really incredibly well and played really well against TCU as well. Once Denzel Johnson goes out after that ejection, Traven Howard slides over to strong safety, and Ty Summers, who earlier on in the season they tried starting him against SMU or against SFA, and ultimately kind of decided that Traven Howard was where they wanted to go, and he got an opportunity, and he's demonstrated some growth, and he's got to give you a little bit more mass at that linebacker position, a little bit more size, which that's going to be helpful for TCU going down the line, playing against more teams that can run the ball well, like Baylor, like Oklahoma, teams that are going to be able to control the line of scrimmage a little bit. Having a guy back there who you can put in and can have a little bit of mass and really kind of hit people and isn't quite as undersized as Howard and Wilson, I think helps you out on the defensive side of the ball, and it certainly helped you out on Saturday.
The one issue with Ty, though, is just seemed like he got I just looked back to the Texas Tech game, and I saw him just get run over so many times. Of course, I was also running over him on the way to Michael Downing, which did not end well either. But I think he's been a little up and down, inconsistent. But this is really his first game action in a while for him. I mean, this season he missed all last year. So I mean, I don't know. I think it's
he's a former quarterback too. I think part of it's the mentality.
In San Antonio.
The mentality. He's got to get the mentality, and we saw it. I think it was 2 weeks ago on one of those goal line stands where TCU actually did something, and actually stood guys up because they're smaller. He was in there and he laid the wood on somebody. He's just got to get the mentality now that he's getting bigger that he can be bigger and faster and stronger than most of these guys. And that may be it for him. Playing quarterback, he's probably not used to putting his head, his chin down and going straight into somebody. It's always been kind of take the least amount of punishment you can.
Right.
So
now he's the one that knocks.
Yeah. There you go.
It was a Breaking Bad reference. I think I wrote that about him in the first story I wrote about Ty Summers. But yeah, now he's got to learn to be the one that knocks, not the one that gets knocked.
Absolutely. And so let me pose this question to you guys. Now that you've got a little bit extra time here, and how well they played with Ty Summers at linebacker and Traven Howard back at strong safety, do you think about maybe working Denzel Johnson out at linebacker a little more because he is a little bigger? I think Traven Howard's probably a little better in pass coverage. And do you want to work Denzel Johnson at linebacker and move Howard back to strong safety, or maybe even moving Traven Howard to weak safety, having him on one side, Denzel on the other, and more Ty Summers at linebacker?
That's a lot of
options you're throwing out.
A lot of options.
No,
it's really just two.
I'll say this. I'll say this first. I do think Traven Howard did a great job at strong safety, and I think Denzel Johnson, the strong safety position and the linebacker position in TCU's defense, the responsibilities are very similar a lot of the time. And Denzel Johnson does have a little bit more of the build for the position. I think at some point you kind of have to make a decision. It's like, okay, we've moved guys around so much. We want to get guys to the point where they can just be comfortable where they're at. And so I think that's definitely something they can try in situations where they do need a stop in short yardage. I think bringing Denzel into the box and even letting him play that linebacker position and letting Howard switch over and play nickel, I think that works out fine for him. I'm not sure it's something you want to do on a really consistent basis. Also talking about the weak safety position, just as a side note, Ridwan Isahaku has done a really good job through 3 games. I feel like has really kind of, especially for a freshman who's, playing his first snaps, a redshirt freshman playing his first snaps.
And was a corner in high school?
I'm really
from the
ATL. I've been really impressed with him so far, and part of that's because it's just a step up from Michael Downing. But I'm very impressed with what he's done so far, and I think he gives them a good future at that position.
It just seems like no matter what combo of these guys you put out there, you've got athletes now where you thought you had athletes at the beginning of the year, but now these guys are stepping up and getting more confident. We kind of expected this as the season went along. They kind of feast on these poorer teams and be ready for the heavier contests later down the road with West Virginia, Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, Baylor still left on the schedule. Is these guys starting to get confident, and those that athleticism starting to really shine a little bit better.
We haven't called you Fanbo Willie yet.
He's waiting. As these guys start to get a little bit better, more confident. That's why I don't want to move them around a whole lot. I don't want to mess with it too much. These guys are just now starting to learn the positions really well, and Howard's done incredible the last couple weeks at linebacker. Don't mess it up now. Not everyone can be Nick Orr.
Gotcha.
You can just play everywhere.
You just put him wherever, and he's going to...
Yeah, Nick Orr is just a freak.
Okay.
A good freak.
And Nick Orr, another guy who rebounded there in the second half for you, gives up that long touchdown to Lazard in the first quarter, and then really, really shut things down in terms of his pass coverage, fought through a block on a screen pass to get a tackle for loss, came in and had a strip sack that then gives TCU the ball when Iowa State was threatening to get into scoring position. So Nick Orr, again, comes through big for TCU, and he's been, I think, probably their defensive MVP through 7 games.
Ooh, save that thought for later.
Sorry.
Because we're going to do mid-season report card here in a couple segments. All right, so TCU gets the win. They got some time off. Hopefully we'll get some of these guys back from injury. Kavontae Turpin, it looked like it was maybe like a sternum, maybe up into the shoulder region, but I think it was more precautionary to keep him out the rest of that game. Emmanuel Porter, we're hoping to get him back. We saw a healthy Listenby, which you can see.
Listenby look real back.
Look how much the difference that makes, having Listenby on the opposite side.
Did you see... I felt like it was Sports Illustrated. It might have been someone on ESPN wrote a story about how TCU's offense is better without Colby Listenby.
That seems retarded.
It was.
What happened? So what happened was.
So you saw this.
Let's give context here. So Gary comes out not the week leading up to the K-State game, I believe, or no, it was the week before, and it was one of those 2 weeks. And he comes out and he basically says, "Well, as people were asking about how's Colby's injury kind of progressing," and he says, "Oh, he's coming along. In some ways, our offense it might be better without him because there's not as much of a temptation for the offensive coordinators to call those deep shots as consistently on 1st and 10 and that kind of thing, and putting yourself in an unfavorable down and distance." He says that. It's kind of an offhand comment. It wasn't, he didn't go on a 2-minute rant about it, but it was, but it's what he said. And the Star Telegram wrote that as kind of like a footnote to its story, and then Fox Sports picked it up.
That's what it was, Fox Sports.
Fox Sports picks it up and writes a more in-depth kind of examination of that topic, because TCU's offense had been fine without Colby Listenby, and he kind of took offense to it.
He
kind of
was
tell.
not happy about it on Twitter.
Listenby kind of took offense to it on Twitter and kind of was retweeting all
As
these different
he
people,
should.
all these different people who were saying that's ridiculous. You're great and it's going to be fine. And he comes back against K-State, didn't really do anything, but only had, I think it was about 1 day of practice that week where he went full.
Was in 3
full
plays
going.
or something that game.
Yeah, and he didn't play very much. Last week was able to get a full week of reps, and you could see what the difference was in him. Just especially when that short period of the game when Dotson went out, when Listenby was able to kind of carry them in the passing game and give them that vertical threat back, getting both of them on the field again at the same time. I mean, Josh Dotson and Trevon Boykin have been potent enough, and now you're going to add that to the mix.
This offense is real good.
It's going to be
real good.
It's going to be fun. So that's going to wrap up the Iowa State recap / the Colby Listenby special. We love you, Colby. We're not the ones that
we didn't
doubting
that.
you. That was other media
Fox
outlets.
Sports.
That was not TCU.rivals.com.
Nope.
That was not us. All right, we're going to talk a little bit about some recruiting here in the Texas area, maybe in the southwestern Louisiana area. We'll see where it goes. Coming up next on the Purple Menace Podcast.
I'm Rachel Ray, and food is not only the way I make my living, it's how I spend time with my family and friends. It's hard to imagine true hunger, but sadly, 1 in 6 Americans don't know where their next meal will come from. They're your neighbors, your friends, your coworkers. Visit feedingamerica.org/hunger to find out how you can make a difference. I'm Rachel Ray, and together, we are Feeding America.
A message from Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to the Purple Menace Podcast. Geoff Craig, Billy Wessels, Matt Jennings.
What to do?
Okay, guys, we've got time to talk about recruiting. We didn't do a lot of recruiting last week because Matt wasn't with us. He was back home.
Sorry about that.
He was recruiting.
It's okay. We replaced you.
Well, Tyler did a better job than I would have, so it's
He
okay.
did a really good job. For someone that's never done radio stuff, he did a really good job. He was fun, too.
Remember when he invited us to go watch a game in his house?
He did.
Hey,
we need to
Tyler.
get that.
Let's go do that.
Tyler,
What?
we're going to your man cave.
What I'm trying to do is I think we should keep reaching out to these players. Like I said, we'll tease again for next week. We have a former Rose Bowl champion,
And a former
Horned
NFL
Frog,
player.
and a former Atlanta Falcon
ATL,
coming
baby.
on the show. So you can try to figure out who it's going to be, but it's a former NFL player for the Falcons who was a Rose Bowl champion with the Frogs. He's going to be our special guest next week. We need to keep reaching out to these guys, and let's try to get one big, huge watching party with like a bunch of former Frogs
That'd be awesome.
and us.
Yeah,
and
we're just like,
at
hey,
one
guys.
venue, take a big group photo, and just keep this thing rolling.
These are all things that sound wonderful, and we should do them.
Yeah, wonderful, like us having fan media network as a part of our show now.
As part of our podcast.
Yes.
As our wonderful sponsor.
Our official sponsor,
Yes.
Fan Media Network. And we're going to be talking more about them when we do prediction time later in the show. So, recruiting. Matt, there's a quarterback coming in next year, Brennan Wooten.
Yes.
Billy loves this kid. He thinks he's the greatest quarterback he's ever seen in his life.
Well,
I haven't seen, no. Billy's
watched
said
Boykin
he's
play a
really,
couple
really,
games this
he's
year.
really, really good.
Yep.
And as he's done better this year, it's put some fear in some people's minds on whether he was going to stay coming to TCU because of, obviously you've got Sawyer and Mulestein here, and then you've got Kenny Hill here. Tell us a little bit about Brennan Wooten.
Yeah, Brennan Wooten, former Marble Falls quarterback, now at San Angelo, and he has now officially signed his financial aid agreement with TCU. So he is coming. He can't sign his letter of intent yet, obviously, but he is coming to TCU. He's actually planning on enrolling in January, which is huge for the Frogs. It's something that they weren't able to do when they were first installing the new offense. They wanted to get Foster Sawyer in here and Grayson Mulestein in here earlier, and they weren't able to do it. And so those guys weren't behind the curve by any means. That wasn't like they were going to start, but as much time as possible to get a chance to get reps, get in the offense, learn the playbook, all of it. Brennan Wooten's going to get every opportunity to do that, which is going to be really helpful for him. And to your point, like what Billy was talking about, I mean, kid's a great athlete and a great player. He's kind of, I'm trying to think of a comparison. I would compare him kind of to a Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma in terms of a guy who has good arm strength, is a good decision maker, but is also explosive in the running game. It's not going to be his first thing that he does, but he is. They'll use him in the zone read and things like that, and he'll be effective.
He's not Foster Sawyer. He's not going to sit back there.
No. What I was thinking, like I was trying to think of a comparison for him. I was thinking that maybe this is like a crazy comparison. It could be really good. He's almost Mariota-y.
Yeah,
I feel like he kind of fits that mold. He's a little smaller on the smaller scale size. He can move pretty well.
He's got enough wiggle to avoid things, but he wants to throw.
Yeah. I mean, he'll throw it, and he's pretty accurate. He doesn't throw a lot of interceptions. Takes care of the ball, but and can move. So he's a guy you got to be worried about that too. So
Yeah,
I think he's a good comp to. I mean, they would sign him right now if you told him, "Hey, he's gonna have a career like Mariota had."
right.
So
Yeah, he was. We've gotten a chance to talk with him and see him a couple different times. And the other thing about him that TCU fans are going to love, he's just a great kid. I mean, he's a really, really loves the game. Really is has been on campus already a lot, trying to soak in as much information as he can as not an official athlete of TCU yet. Heading to get a chance to go and watch practices and go to the spring game and things like that, and trying to just absorb as much as he can and be as ready as possible for the day he steps on campus.
That sounds really good. So, Frog fans, breathe easy. Brennan Wooten is coming. We're going to have some depth at quarterback.
We got plenty of depth at quarterback.
Boykin
Right now.
leaving.
so many quarterbacks.
We've got
We got Sean
quarterbacks.
Robinson committed for 2017 as well.
Yeah, and then you've got. I mean, this class looks really good. We've talked in other shows. We've talked about the receivers. We've talked about the defensive backs. We've talked about a couple of guys that may be strong safeties or linebackers. But there's still some positions in need. We were looking over it, and I mean, obviously the first one that jumps out at me, and you guys laughed about it, but it was punter. We need a punter. No punters signed. Yeah. And it's just like the NFL. Punter's not like the most important thing you got to worry about. There's probably some good kids that could walk on as a punter. You don't want to have to give a scholarship away if you don't have to, but we don't have a punter on the roster other than probably Jonathan Song right now, who's the backup kicker. With Obercrom and Perry both being seniors, got to bring in somebody else who can either kick or punt. I would think that punter would be up there. defensive tackle.
It's like I don't have any punters listed here. We don't have any punters in the Rivals database currently.
That's okay. I'm just saying punters on there. So some defensive tackles, maybe a running back or a guard.
Yeah. So I'm looking. I was running through some guys that have TCU offers that hold TCU in their top 2, 3, 4, 5 at this stage of the game. Most of these guys have a top 5 at least. Looking at the defensive line, looking at a couple of NOLA guys, Stephon Taylor and Cy Martin. These two guys have had TCU in their top 2 or 3 for a long time. Have visited the school together a bunch, and I think these guys could very well find their way in purple. And TCU's recruiting the New Orleans area a lot lately and have done a pretty solid job there. So I think these are two guys on the defensive line to look out for.
Okay, and then what about you got offensive lineman?
What more do you want? What more do you want?
Billy's ready.
Yeah, so I was looking offensive lineman Tremonda Moore
From
Oklahoma City. Yeah, so I like him a lot. I think he might be tough to get him out of Oklahoma. I don't think they do have a lineman coming from Oklahoma right now, but I think
Tyler Brown.
Yeah, Tyler Brown, but I think Tremonda Moore's a little bit higher caliber.
Yeah, I think Moore's probably got a higher ceiling. I think TCU would be thrilled to have him, if for one, to have another great offensive lineman on the roster, and two, because the following season at Oklahoma City, John Marshall is Justin Broyles, who's a 2017 guy who also likes TCU and has visited, and defensive back who's really explosive, can return punts, things like that.
That pipeline.
And so trying to establish, get their network a little bit more, establish some connections there, and so getting more would then be another step towards keeping and campaigning for Broyles the following year. So just, some other things to keep in mind with that. With recruiting, the thing is you always have to be thinking like 3 years ahead.
Yeah, I know.
And you got to think about the relationships these players have with each other.
Yep.
And like we've seen it a lot. We've seen these guys, they work out at camps together. They may not play on the same high school teams. It helps if they do. But there's a lot of relationships with these guys, especially with social media now. These guys keep in touch and stay in touch.
It's the reason
talk
why
all the time. They favor each other's top 5s. They reply to everything. These guys know each other. I mean, who needs cell phone numbers anymore when you've got Twitter handles?
It's the reason why TCU's has dominated in Houston the way they have this season. From Sewo to Derek King to Travion Williams, now to Isaiah Chambers, to all of them. They've all those guys have relationships because they're playing against each other. A lot of the time you have these high school players who play on the same teams in 7-on-7 in the summer. So establishing that kind of networking down like wherever the hotbed of talent is that year is crucial, and they've already done it in Houston. And they're you got to keep an eye forward towards the next couple of seasons as well.
Yeah, and Houston's been so good for them. You had B.J. Catalon and Deontay Gray, Houston guys. Before that, you had Aaron Brown, Andy Dalton, those guys from the Houston area. So Houston's been very good to TCU, and the recruiting class as a whole looks really, really good. So there's a lot to be excited for. The Frogs keep rolling. Winning games is the best thing you can do for recruiting as well, and they're 7-0 right now. The offense is attracting more players, and the defense, although there's been injuries and they've struggled, I think from a defensive standpoint, that may draw you more recruits like the Isaiah Chambers, because they can look and go, man, I can get on that field now.
Right.
And I can play and I can make an impact. I can help us get to where we need to be. And so, if you look at it, you got to find the little glimmer of hope in everything. And recruiting is crazy because that's what recruiters have to do, is be able to find that thing that works for that recruit. And this season is almost like a perfect storm on the recruiting trail because of the injuries on defense, but the offense has looked so good. So it's going to be a good recruiting class. More on that as the season goes along. But now we're going to jump on over. We've got a bye week this week, so we're going to come back. We're going to give you a midseason report card on the TCU Horned Frog football team here on the Purple Menace Podcast.
Have you heard the buzz about West Nile virus? Protect yourself and your family from the mosquito bites that spread the virus. When you go outside, use mosquito repellent-containing DEET. When possible, wear long-sleeve shirts and pants. And remove standing water around your home where mosquitoes breed. Anyone can become infected, but if you're over 50, you're at higher risk for severe disease or even death from West Nile virus. Remember, the best defense comes from things you can do yourself. Fight the bite. Tell mosquitoes to buzz off.
Welcome back to the Purple Menace Podcast. Geoff Craig, Billy Wessels, Matt Jennings, here with you again. Now it's time to do a mid-season report card on the Horned Frogs. 7 games in, so we're a little over halfway through the season. They're 7-0, so you can't complain about that at all. So let's go. Do you want to start with offense? Do you want to go defense? Do you want to go special teams?
Let's go ahead and let's start with the areas for improvement. You can end on a high note.
Okay, so let's start with special teams.
Yeah, special teams. I mean, here's the good news for TCU is that Kavonte Turpin has been spectacular for them so far.
Because we didn't know what to expect when Eccles-Looper decided to transfer.
No, and in hindsight, now you kind of understand why Eccles-Looper made the choice to transfer, and wishing him all the best at Arkansas State. But Kavonte Turpin has just been absolutely dynamic. I mean, anytime he touches the ball, you've got everyone kind of like leans forward in their seats a little bit because you're like, this could be going to the house right now.
I call it the Curly effect.
Absolutely, and that's the player to whom Patterson has compared Turpin to on a consistent basis is Jeremy Curley in terms of his personality as well as his play on the field. So Turpin's been great for them, and TCU hoping to get Turpin back next week. We'll see how that goes. Kind of an undisclosed injury. We'll find out a little bit more about that hopefully within the coming week. Then going forward from Turpin, though, You've got 2 seniors who know what they're doing, obviously, in Jaden Obercrome and Ethan Perry.
And this is where we differ.
They have been inconsistent. We can say that.
Yes.
Obercrome has made some big has been fairly reliable for you over the course of the season, but as is kind of his shtick in those closer kind of chip shots. I'm not sure if it's a focus thing. It seems like from what Patterson says, that's what it is. It's kind of like when he doesn't feel like he has to focus to hit something because it's supposed to be shorter, it's supposed to be easier, is when he's most at risk for missing something. And so he's missed a couple. He missed, he had one blocked and missed one against Texas Tech. Missed another against Minnesota.
That was the Gophers' fault.
Yeah, that was the dramatic chipmunk. But yeah, so he's been up and down, and then Ethan Perry had a stretch of the last couple games where he's been really, really good, especially in that Texas game. But last week against Iowa State, had a bad punt to kind of add to some early momentum for the Cyclones, which didn't help. So as of right now, I feel like I'd rate him kind of a B, maybe B minus. I think with the way Turpin's played, I think you could even justify saying like a B plus.
I'm saying C plus. I give him C plus just because Ethan Perry, it seems like it's the first punt every week. It's like he's got nerves all of a sudden. The first punt is really bad, and it comes at a very inopportune time. And it's making the defense have to jump out there and play a little bit, kind of from behind, if you will. Obercrome, he's done this for 4 years. It's the 27-yard field goal off the left hash that he pushes right. But you give him 56 yards, and he nails it. So. Right. I'm okay with that. Turpin's been a very pleasant surprise. The kick return game with Turpin and Hicks has been pretty good. So I'm going to give him a C+, but it's based just off the inconsistency, really, from me. If Perry, the second half of the season, kicks like we know he's able to kick, and Obercrome cleans it up, we're good to go. So I give him a C+. But like you said, let's steadily progress up. So we're going to switch over to the defensive side of the ball. Defensively, so many injuries early on really skewed the expectations of this team. But as you've said, Ridwan Isahaku has played much better the last couple weeks at weak safety. Traven Howard's grown, as has Montrell Wilson at the linebacker positions. And then getting Mike Tuaua and Davion Pearson back has definitely helped this defense. So, from position, the defensive line, early in the year struggled, and I think that's why we saw so many teams run the ball as well as they have, because that's a staple of the 4-2-5 under Patterson was you cannot run the ball against us. Josh Carraway, I think, was getting tired because he was out there every play. Getting Terrell Lathan back healthy now, you've got the rotation back in there. And so the defensive line, I think they've played pretty well. I'll give them a B- just because they're not getting enough pressure, quarterback hurries or sacks. They're just not getting there enough. So I'm going to give them a B-, but they're bending and not breaking. So that's where I go with defensive line. So I'm going to let you guys have defensive backs and linebackers.
Ooh, okay.
I mean, one each.
I'll go. One each go each
you
one.
You want linebackers
take
or
one.
DBs?
I'll
You
take
decide.
one. I'll go defensive backs because that's probably the harshest one to grade, I guess. I think it's been just I don't want to say a nightmare is not the right word, but you've had so many injuries, and it's been one guy after another, playing the next man up between losing Kenny Aloka early on, losing Ranthony Tejada early on. It's like these guys, I haven't even said their names in weeks. I'm almost forgetting who all we had on the team to start with, and it's been a struggle, but I think it's been a little bit underwhelming, to say the least, how well they've played it. Seeing Corey O'Mealy he's averaging 2 or 3 pass interferences a game is kind of frustrating. And most of his pass breakups are coming with his helmet. So I guess a C-. Like I just feel like they haven't been good. Maybe it's just we're used to seeing a different standard with TCU, and it's just a whole different world now. But these guys are the Michael Downing experiment was not great. But I understand that he was probably the most knowledgeable at the time, and now Ray's picking up, and he's doing a lot better. Denzel Johnson's had a couple big hits, but I think he hasn't been as much as they want him to be. And Nick Orr's been a star. Like, he's probably an A- to A, and then everyone else has been kind of middling around a C to C-.
What about Kindred?
Oh yeah, Kendrick's real good.
Well, and here's the thing, and we and everyone kind of piled on Michael Downing early, and rightfully so to a certain degree, because he just was getting burnt a lot. But I think a lot more. You can only blame him so much because he is a walk-on, and he wasn't supposed to play at all this year. Corey O'Mealy, I feel like, was a guy, again, another guy who was supposed to be your fourth corner rather than your second. And so it's just, these injuries do wear you down a little bit. With Kindred, I will say he's played well or better as of late. Yeah. I was disappointed with the way he was playing early on in the season, particularly against Texas Tech. That was the one game that I fixated on. There, specifically, I remember one late touchdown where it was a 50-plus yard touchdown on like a short pass that turns into a long gain, and in that situation, I know you're tired, but it almost appeared to me like he not only did he not take a great angle in the play, but that he didn't necessarily give full effort. And it's just, when you're the lone senior in that group, in that secondary, that can't happen. You've got to set the tone. And I think he's done a much better job of that the last 2-3 weeks.
I think he woke up when he destroyed Dajay Johnson against Texas. I think that's kind of the turning point for him. Like the very beginning of that game, he played well against Texas, played pretty well since then. And of course, the big hit he had in the Iowa State game that led to the Trevon Boykin emoji face.
Right.
Which was hilarious.
His versatility, the fact that what he brings in terms of his ability to lay huge hits and be an enforcer, and at the same time play great coverage. Because for all, we've seen Denzel Johnson, we've seen Isahaku, we've seen Orr, we've seen O'Mealy all get beat at points in the passing game. I can't point to a specific instance where I saw Kindred made a mistake that led to a long gain in the passing game, and I feel like that's, again, his senior veteran leadership, and I think that's just experience, which a lot of the rest of the defense doesn't have. And that's the secondary, though. That was Billy's segment. Yeah. Linebackers, really quickly.
Yeah. When are you going to talk about linebackers, Matt?
Sorry, linebackers. I've been pleasantly surprised. I really have. I think the starting duo they had at the start of the season would have been great, and I think they lost a little bit of size and a little bit of the ability to kind of hit their running lanes a little bit with more force. But I think Montrell Wilson and Traven Howard have both been great. I think Montrell Wilson is the other young guy besides Nick Orr on this defense who, in a year, 2 years, is going to really, really become a star for this defense.
Darrell Washington.
Yeah, that's some of the comparisons that people have thrown out with him. They're obviously still learning how, both former safeties, but I'll give them a solid B. Especially given expectations when you're throwing out your fifth and sixth linebacker at that point.
Okay, so B- on the D-line, B on the linebackers. Would you say C-?
I think I said C-. Is that too harsh? Y'all are being nice now. I don't want to be like the mean guy.
Well,
he gave special teams a C+, and I'd say the secondary's been worse than the special teams.
All right, good.
Yeah.
Makes you feel a little better.
All right, let's wrap this thing up. Offense. Running backs. How have they been? Aaron Green, Kyle Hicks, Travorce Johnson, maybe a little Sean Nixon, Turpin, those type of tweeners. How have the running backs been?
B+? They haven't been asked to do a whole lot.
Yeah, that's true. They TCU hasn't run the ball a ton. Kyle Hicks on Saturday looked like
he
flashed kind of what people were expecting from him coming out of high school and coming out of Martin. And now, I'll be honest, I'd kind of not given up, but kind of had resigned myself to like maybe he's not going to be the difference maker we thought he was going to be coming out of high school before the season. And so far this season, he has really kind of proven me wrong, and I've been happy to say so. I think TCU's future at the position is bright with him, and then with Travorce Johnson. Even though Johnson hasn't gotten a ton of carries so far this season, and then of course Aaron Green making huge plays. The Texas Tech play, the biggest of them all. But other than last week, hasn't really had a game where he hasn't been able to get going, hasn't been able to get in the end zone.
Yeah, so I'm going to give the running backs a B+.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
I'd say about a B.
B+.
I'd say a B.
So we got two B+ and a B. Wide receivers.
A+. I mean, Dotson's been unreal.
As a group, yeah. I think this has been the most outstanding thing because you've got Dotson's been unreal. I mean, he may be the Blitnikoff Award winner.
He's not human, is what I've determined.
Listenby, he's missed games with injury, but when he's in there healthy, he's every bit as not every bit as dominant as Dotson this year, but maybe Dotson of last year. And then the surprise, when you lose guys like Ty Slanina, to be able to plug in a Sean Nixon who never played receiver, to put in a true freshman like Kavonte Turpin. You lost Emmanuel Porter.
Been solid.
Des White's been good. And, these are guys that are still learning these positions.
Right.
And they've all played really well. And they've made big plays. I mean, difference-making plays, all of them.
Yeah, and I think, none of them, Josh Dotson's the focal point in terms of the passing game, but all these other guys, when their number is called in their situation-specific instance, Des White with big catches over the middle, and Kavonte Turpin turning a short gain into a long touchdown, and Sean Nixon doing just about everything they ask him to do, whether that's throw double passes or run routes out of the slot. They've been great, especially given that's the one position I feel like where the loss of due to injuries, and again, we haven't even talked about Emmanuel Porter being out either, but the loss due to injuries has not hurt you anywhere near as much. Jerison Stewart, as a true freshman, has been great.
I was about to say that. I was about to bring him up as soon as you quit to breathe. I was going to mention that.
You go ahead. I mean, he's been
No,
phenomenal.
he's been good. He's been real good the last couple weeks since the injury bug's taken over. It's starting to hit the offense side a little bit more. But yeah, J.K. Stew's been really solid, and that whole unit has been a lot of fun to watch as they progress and grow. And it's all still, Listenby and Dotson are both seniors, but after that, this group's going to be solid for the next couple of years to come too.
So it's going to be good.
I'd definitely give them an A+. They get an A+ just on Dotson's merit alone. Dotson gonna have a large margin in terms of holding every major statistical record in TCU's record books when it comes to receiving. Just has been an absolute freak. And the thing about it with him last season he did it quietly. Like, he had the one-handed catch against Minnesota, but generally it was pretty like, oh yeah, Josh Dotson's really good. Like, he's super consistent. This year, like, he's playing angry, like he's playing mean, and
he's already broken the receiving yardage and touchdown record, and we're in 7 games.
Yeah, for a season.
Yes. Yeah, and he's
which were his records.
He's
and they could play 14 games this year. They could be halfway through the season right now,
and so he's just absolutely killed it. So yeah, A+ for them. And offensive line, A. They've blocked extremely well for Trevon Boykin. They've blocked really well in the running game. They could improve a little bit in the running game, I feel like, but overall, I feel like they've really done well. 4 guys coming back from last year is a big part.
Yeah, they're creating a good pocket, and the fact that we've seen a little bit of growth in Boykin, but some of it's the offensive line too, keeping that pocket to where he doesn't have to just take off and run because his lineman got beat and a guy's chasing him down. It's still there, so he can move around a little bit, maybe just step up, and he finds those guys deep over the middle. So I'm going to agree. I think the entire offensive line group has done a really good job. I'm going to give them an A as well.
I was thinking the same thing. Everything else said, I agree with you, especially the A.
Okay, Billy, I'm going to leave the last position up to you. Quarterback position.
Coach? Oh.
The quarterback position. Oh, and the tight ends, I'm throwing them in with the linemen. Buck Jones, Dominic Murka, Charlie Reed.
Charlie Reed got a touchdown last week. Look at that.
So you've got Murka's caught a touchdown and Reed's caught a touchdown. And Buck Jones has just been – he got his first start last week. He's just been consistent at whichever spot at tight end because they use him at 3 different positions out there, and a little H-back and everything. They've just all done their job. They do it. They get none of the glory. Now you're starting to see some touchdowns from them, just an extra wrinkle. And put the tight ends in there. I'm going to give them an A as well just because they're not asked to do a whole lot. But if they make a mistake, it's an obvious mistake, and it hasn't happened. So, quarterback.
If only this team had a quarterback, that'd be really good. I think F? No. Obviously an A+. Boykin is your Heisman frontrunner. Everyone loves Leonard Fournette, but I think it's probably a 2-horse race between Fournette and Boykin. I think lately the Heisman committee's shown to favor the quarterback, and I think Boykin's going to have – if this team's gonna go 12-0 or 11-1 or 13-0 or 14-0, whatever this team's going to wind up being, it's going to be whatever Boykin lets them do because he's done little wrong so far, and his Heisman numbers have been better than the last 3 Heisman Trophy winners at this point in the season, and I don't expect it to change anytime soon. The competition's going to get tougher, so he's going to have to keep doing it against better opponents each week. OK State, Oklahoma, and Baylor coming up, and West Virginia, of course. So if he can keep building on what he's doing right now, I mean, he should win the Heisman, and he's got an A+ obviously so far.
A+.
A+.
Even for he's kind of been crowned the people's champ. I think I've noticed on Twitter too, because you saw the picture with him and the little girl, and the Star Telegram did this cool video with some Iowa State fan getting his towel and saying he should hope he wins the Heisman. So I mean the people's champ and the statistical champ, and I think he's just going to be like GP said, you got to sit back and kind of enjoy this right now because we're not going to see another guy like Boykin for a long time. I don't think.
It's going to be good. So there's your grades for the mid-season report card here on the Purple Menace Podcast. Make sure you let us know your predictions, your report card if you want, if you disagreed with something we said, at TCU_rivals, at Jeffrey_Craig, at Billy Wessels, at Matt A. Jennings. Let us know what we screwed up. Coach, what do you think?
I'm not pleased with anything.
That's not surprising. We're going to come back. It'll be the fan media prediction time here on the Purple Menace Podcast.
Multiple sclerosis destroys connection, so it's only fitting that connection would be its greatest enemy, because connection takes away MS's ability to isolate, and as more connections form, we end up with more knowledge, more resources, more understanding, more ideas, and more hope. And then, the connections we make become more powerful than the connections MS destroys. MS kills connection. Connection kills MS. Give what you know at msconnection.org.
Welcome back to the Purple Menace Podcast. This song is fitting because it is time for prediction time. Prediction time! Brought to you by Fan Media Network. Billy, prediction time. This week, we got no predictions.
I predict that TCU will win the bye week, but it is a good time for a bye. Like this team needs a break. It's been a long season. We can't be like Baylor and have 3 bye weeks and then go play Lamar or whatever their schedule's like. But it's coming at a good time. I mean, you got West Virginia coming up at home. West Virginia's playing. They've lost 3 straight, but they've played a lot of tough teams in a row, and
they've got a bye too.
Yeah, they've got a bye, which is fair. I'd rather them not, but I guess that's fair. What's fair for? No, I think I don't know. What can we predict?
Well, we can predict the end of season stats for Josh Dotson. We can predict who is going to win awards. I think we should just go over what we've done so far. I mean, it's prediction time, but we can take tomorrow is the day that the Cubs win the World Series and Back to the Future 2.
It seems unlikely they'll actually win the World Series tomorrow, but I guess they could feasibly still win. I think they're down 3-0 in the series now.
Down 2-0 would they play tonight.
Yeah, they're about to be down 3-0.
They could get swept on the day that they're supposed to win the World Series.
That'd be sad.
Keeping with the Back to the Future theme, maybe let's look back. Let's back to the future, to the beginning. We'll go over the predictions we had, and let's crown a mid-season champion.
Okay, I can.
It's like being elected to the All-Star team, but not by the fans, by the coaches.
But by us, and there's only one All-Star.
Yeah.
You should have played Smash Mouth's All-Star before this.
I prefer Get Lucky because our predictions are pretty random.
I don't
and
know.
crazy.
The guy that made the predictions last week seemed awfully talented.
You say that, Billy, because as I looked back over
there was
the first 7 weeks, there was 2 wins by me, 2 wins by Matt, and 2 wins by Billy.
Wait, hold up.
And then this week, you nailed it. I mean, almost perfect.
Exactly for Boykin's stats line.
Billy predicted for Trevon Boykin to have 403 yards passing with 4 touchdowns and 57 yards rushing and 1 touchdown. And his exact stats were
436 and 4 touchdowns and like 74 and a touchdown.
That's pretty good.
So I was off by like 50 total yards.
Yeah, I was off by 5 the one week I won with Aaron Green. I was off by 5 yards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a lot harder to predict a quarterback, and you predicted 2 different stat categories, and we're pretty close. And you got the touchdowns right. So Billy won last week. So Billy Wessels, you are our first half prediction time. Brought to you by Fan Media.
Yeah, I am the
champion,
the king of fan media now. I think you know,
is that how it works?
It's kind of like how Howard Stern's the king of all media. I'm the king of fan media. So no, I think predictions take a lot of hard work and analysis. No, I just pull a bunch of numbers out of my rear end, and sometimes they're spot on. Sometimes you just kind of notice trends, and I'm not going to toot my own horn for this. Feels like the end of Around the Horn. You can kind of get in your soapbox.
I don't have the wrap it up box to I don't have to play you off.
Because you can't stop me anyway. You see, you can stop me. I can just say whatever I want. I guess you could press the mic off. Yeah, they're just like spot on, like that? as if on demand.
You forget that your co-host also is your producer.
Yeah, I know. Should we talk about the Louisville situation for a little bit?
Oh yeah, let's do that.
That seems kind of fun.
I mean, it's prediction time. I'm predicting they're probably going to get hit with some sanctions.
Oh my gosh! Like I predict that they shouldn't. If SMU got their ban for Larry Brown recruiting infractions, whatever Larry Brown did, this has got to be so much worse.
So for those that don't know, Billy, run down the whole story. We're talking about Louisville
basketball,
who's been a really top.
Well,
program.
they won the national title. Was it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago they won the national title. I think they've won several a handful in the Rick Pitino era. They've been a top 10 team.
I want to say I'm surprised, but it's Pitino.
It's Pitino, and this is kind of what he's done. I mean, he's done this himself too. Not just with the program, but allegedly. I guess we'll keep throwing allegedly around, even though it's today. It seems to be a lot more evidence in the confirming here. They hired women of the night to come to campus to have parties with recruits. That's probably the most
Ford escorts.
That's probably the most PG way to say all this.
Yeah. Ford made a car.
Yeah, and it's just, and so I know some children listen to this podcast. We'll keep it like that. But I think it's just
that's one way to get recruits.
That's one way.
It's a horrible way.
It
sends all the wrong messages.
Yeah, and after everything that's kind of gone on with Baylor recently, you like how it just seems like another sheer violation of women. Like in my opinion, obviously they were taking money for their services, but it's just it just irks me, and I like what the program TCU's running, and when every time I talk to a recruit that's involved in TCU, whether it's football, basketball, whatever, the first word that comes out of their mouth is a family. TCU is a family over here. That's the first thing they talk to. The GP's like a dad, and Mrs. Patterson, Kelsey's like a mom for them, and all the coaches look out for them, and all the players like brothers for these guys, and that's something that doesn't happen here. And I'm gonna feel real dumb if something else comes out in a couple of days and you just don't know about it. But I just can't see that happening at a place like this, and it just shocks me that a major program, and Louisville is it'd be like something like that happening with TCU in football. It'd be that level of big deal because Louisville is a top 10 basketball team.
Oh yeah.
It could be. I mean, I don't know. It just blows my mind that someone thinks that they can get away with something like that when there's money involved and crime. This is not just going to be like,
right. It is illegal.
Yeah. This is going to be. This is not just going to end with the NCAA sanctions. This is going to end with someone probably serving jail time for this.
Hiring ladies of the night is illegal in every city in America, I believe, except for Las Vegas.
I was going to say Reno. I think it's
maybe Reno too. So you've got a couple of outliers there. But it's not only that, it's that the school was doing it. They're paying for it, which is obvious recruiting violations and everything of that. But some of these kids were 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
So you got that blurred adult
line of
consent. I mean, that's a whole nother legal thing.
I don't know the number in Kentucky. I don't know what the legal age of consent is there, but that could be a whole other.
Probably 12.
If it's your cousin in Kentucky, but I think it's it's just you see news stories like this and you just think, thank goodness that wasn't my team, and it's so easy to throw stones. Like obviously I made the joke on Twitter, and I don't know if you saw this earlier, that the only thing that shocks me about the story is that Baylor didn't come up with it first, but it's it's easy. Again, we just don't know about it yet, maybe, but I don't know. It's just a shame to see that that's how big recruiting has come these days. It's you know what? We'll break the law. We'll hire escorts and
once everything comes out, everything's done. My prediction is Rick Pitino's his whole legacy is obviously tainted by this, and his
career's probably done. Right?
He had some horrible. He had some recruiting violations when he was back at Kentucky back in the 90s, and then he had a situation with maybe it was a girlfriend, a mistress, or something less than 10 years ago.
Oh, so it might have been like 5 or 6 years. The best part about that whole story, by the way, was the following year they lost in the first round of the tournament to Morehead State. That's all you need to know about that story. An early exit from Rick Pitino's squad to Morehead State.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's like Rick Pitino thinks he's Tony Soprano and he can just do whatever he wants.
He looks, he kind of looks
very,
he's got that mob boss look to him.
No, he's very Italiano mafioso type. But
I think his career might be done.
It's 2015, like you were saying. Like people can find out everything. Everybody has a camera. Everybody can see you going places. And recruits, God love them. They're 17, 18-year-old. They're idiots.
Kind of stupid.
And they will take pictures of themselves. I mean, athletes in general. We saw Julian Edelman after the Super Bowl. He meets some girl that night and takes her home, and she's taking pictures of him like asleep afterwards, and she's like, look what I did.
Yeah.
And the other people are proud of the morally and ethically wrong things that they're doing, and that's a whole bigger problem in this whole thing. Is somebody along this trail in any of these cases that we've talked about, there's a blurred line of this is okay, like this is acceptable.
You gotta nowadays it's okay to find the balance between breaking the rules and winning.
Yeah. And
there's the moral gray area, which this isn't gray. This is bad.
Oh yeah,
this is not good that they're doing this. But it just seems, how much do you value winning? And it seems to be some people value it very highly. And I'm not going to say like Patterson doesn't value winning, because he does, and he wants to win every game, albeit all by 1 point. But it just seems like he seems to be doing it the right way. Again, who knows? He kicks players off the team for issues. Like we go back to, speaking of Louisville, the defensive Devontae Fields is now sort of playing for Louisville. I know he's not really playing a lot, but he had domestic violence issues and got removed from the university. And so I know we had the issues earlier this year with Mike Tuaua, but that seems like a whole different can of worms compared to this, a whole different can of beer compared to this. I think it's just a totally different issue. I know a lot of people got onto me on Facebook for backing up these quote unquote criminals, but that's what they were called. That's what they were telling to me about TCU's players. But it's totally different levels of crime. These are of just, I don't know, the whole affecting women thing. I'm still mad about the Cowboys taking Greg Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
And all of my friends are Cowboys fans. I'm a Saints fan who cut Junior Gillette, their star defensive player from last year, after he was accused of a domestic violence issue. And the Cowboys go and sign Greg Hardy. And
hey, as a lifelong Cowboys fan, I've lived with the blurred vision glasses that Jerry Jones wears. Okay, like it does. It's, do you want to win and your fans forgive everything, or do you want to do the right thing? I think you can win by doing the right thing.
And
you
it seems like
it.
Patterson's doing that for the most part.
You can do it. But there's other schools that don't think so. And there's always going to be violations. Every school, it's
I mean, I think everybody bends the rules in some way, shape, or form. I'm sure somebody sends like a text that no one finds out about or whatever. This is totally different. This is not a text message. This is not a Snapchat, which I think kind of when NCAA said, yeah, you can use Snapchat for recruiting purposes, that opened some things. That opened a lot of doors. A lot of that's your joke. A lot of Pandora's boxes for these kind of issues, for these kind of blurred lines to come out, and I just don't know. I don't like it. Quit recruiting. Just go to your school.
When the NCAA used to not allow you to have like a second helping of peanut butter, like the rules are that strict. What made you think that this would be okay?
When you walk around the TCU football practice facility, and there are signs everywhere that says players cannot come in here, and it's the kitchen to where they keep the food. That shows you where TCU's at. So we don't even let the players in the kitchen where the food is, let alone getting the extra peanut butter and secret sauce or whatever.
This isn't even prepared food. This is like canned stuff to be made later.
Yeah.
Like they're not even allowed in the room.
No, can't even go look at the baked beans
or whatever.
You can't read
the ingredients, man.
Nope.
Nothing. Not gonna happen. All right, well.
So that's our weird opening prediction section for fan media.
Well, the prediction segment more or less was you winning the first half, and then we went on our soapbox about things that happen in college sports.
Be nice to women.
Yeah, I think that's
should be
as
universal.
far as I know, every one of us has a mom.
Yeah, it's true. I love my mom.
I mean, I love my mom. I'm just saying.
Yep.
If you wouldn't want to treat your mom that way, or your grandma, or your sister, think about it.
We all know a girl. In some ways, like I don't know. When you know moms as well, like, and you know kids, like you've got a daughter.
Yeah, we're getting older, and that changes you too.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah,
so.
have a daughter. Your whole outlook on everything will change.
Yep. And you have a wife that just flaunts around her underwear often. So how does that make you feel?
Hey, you got it, flaunt it.
Yep.
It's called marrying up, Billy.
I'm proud of you.
You'll be there soon. Don't worry. You're like,
and we'll see.
Well, soon's a relative term.
Yeah.
All right. Well, sorry to bum you out. Let's. How can we end this on a high note? Sometimes we do this. We did this like what? It was the second episode.
Because we talked about the whole Baylor rape thing. It's just fun to say Baylor rape thing.
It's better than the Baylor murder thing.
I guess that's true.
There's your happy note. All right, we're out of here. I need some like the Benny Hill theme song. Just us running around.
Did you go to the state fair this year?
I did not.
I didn't go either. I've only been one time and I almost died.
You get the flu. It's a guarantee.
Have I told that story on here before? That could be a fun story to end this off with.
You want to tell me a story about the state fair?
About how I almost died at the state fair.
That's horrible. No, you know what that is? That's awful. That's horrible and awful mixed together.
Tell me more.
Okay, if you're going to keep playing drops over me instead. No, so I went to the state fair. This is probably 8 years ago, and I got really sick. All I wanted was a corn dog. This is Fat Billy. All he wanted was a corn dog. And so I just...
A corn dog?
Or like a dozen, whatever. So I was just walking around, and I got real sick. Apparently, I was super dehydrated because they took me... It was hot, and I was 400 some odd pounds then, and they put me in the medical tent. And I remember watching the Cowboys and Vikings play. That was my entire state fair experience. I was watching the Cowboys-Vikings game on their small TV in the medical tent while they put 2 IV bags into me.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
So-
you were super dehydrated.
Yeah.
You were like verge of death dehydrated.
Yeah, well... Or I was
Did you just eat a corn dog and walk around?
I didn't even have a corn dog. I didn't eat anything.
Did you get a lemonade?
No, I got nothing.
Oh, that's
all
terrible.
I wanted was some kind of
All
treat.
you got was 2 IV bags.
Yep. I actually wrote when I wrote about that for the skiff. I think I wrote my experience. All I left was like a deep fried IV bag. That's how they serve those too, in case you were wondering.
It's awful.
See, that's a fun way to end it.
That is a fun way to end it. And there's our music. That's our cue. I'm just thinking. I'm picturing you like just sitting in a tent, like sad-faced Billy with an IV bag, just going.
It's like the Nutty Professor with an IV bag in him.
The clumps.
The clumps. Yep.
Just all sad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, don't get sad. Get glad. Next Tuesday.
We'll actually have a game to talk about. We'll have a former NFL player here.
Yes, former NFL Atlanta Falcons cornerback Rafael Priest.
Oh, there it is. Just spilled the whole.
I had
can
to
of
wait
beans.
until the very end.
Yep. Wait till Matt was gone.
Yeah, Matt doesn't even know, and he's from Atlanta, so he's going to be really excited. Really excited. So we're excited. I'm Geoff Craig at GEOFFREY_CRAIG on Twitter. You can find me on Facebook too if you want. Stalk me and follow me or like or whatever. How that Facebook works.
I'm at Billy Wessels on Twitter at TCU_rivals, and yeah, find me on Twitter or on Facebook too. Just Billy Space Wessels. You can have fun by looking at the pictures of me from like the state fair days when I was really big, and then kind of track me through time and see how I'm not as big anymore.
Oh, okay. Oh, and another place.
Should I not have said that? I don't know. Instagram's same sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we've all got
Scoop_it on Instagram.
All my stuff's like the same name or like similar. So, and usually you can just click on one to get to the other one.
Yeah.
If you go to my Twitter, I think it's got everything linked on it. Follow the Purple Menace Podcast or Purple Menace on Twitter at TCU_rivals. Go check out the website, TCU.rivals.com, or my favorite, purplemenace.com.
It's easy to remember and easy to
remember. You can check out the podcast on iTunes. Just get on iTunes and search Purple Menace Podcast.
Download the Fan Media app.
Yes, and Fan Media Network. Go to the App Store. Download Fan Media Network. Go in there, create an account. What you do is you go out there and you become your own reporter. Shoot a little 30-second video before the game. If you're sitting at home and you're watching a game between Cincinnati and Buffalo, and you go, hey, here's Geoff Craig sitting from my living room. I'm watching former Frogs, Andy Dalton and Jerry Hughes go to war tonight. Something like that. It's that simple. Get on there, search for TCU football. Get on there, follow. You can pick all your sports teams from all your different leagues. And it's the fans that vote on this, so it's really good. It's fun. That's how we're going to be doing our predictions starting next week. We're going to go on the Fan Media app. We'll give you our predictions for the final score and the player of the game. You should do the same. Tweet us your Fan Media prediction, and then I'm going to make a little log of it, and I think we're going to come up with some prizes. We'll definitely give you the winner, the fan winner, every week will get a fantastic shout-out here on the Purple Menace Podcast. So, for Billy Wessels and Matt Jennings, I'm Geoff Craig. We'll be back next Tuesday with another edition of the Purple Menace Podcast.